This is the E-Commerce Edge podcast with your host, Jason Greenwood. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the E-Commerce Edge podcast. I've got another incredible guest to introduce you to today, but before I do that, I would like to encourage you to go wherever you consume your podcasts. Please follow and share. It helps us with the algorithms, and as a small niche podcast, we could use all the help that we can get. And we have an amazing back catalog of over 450 episodes for you to get stuck into, with some incredible topics covered in great detail with incredible guests like the one that I'm about to introduce you to now. And without further ado, I would love to welcome SINHA from Dresma to the podcast. Welcome, SIDDHARTH.
Great to be here, Jason. Look forward to our conversation.
I'm looking forward to it as well. We had a few technical difficulties getting up and running, but you can hear me now and I can hear you. So we're off to the races.
Yeah, it's all perfect. Let's get on with it.
Excellent. Look, you've been working in this space before we get into Dresma and what it is and what it does and what's on the tin and what's in planned for the future of Dresma. You've been working in this space for 5.5 years now, specifically with Dresma. You've been building the Dresma as the co-founder and CEO. But before we get into that, what drew you into this space? You've got a varied background. You have a little bit of hospitality background. You also have imaging, post-production, creative background. You've got a very eclectic history, and it wouldn't automatically lead me to assume that you would build a tech platform to assist e-commerce brands and merchants to do better and be better when it comes to content. So what sucked you into this beautiful industry?
Yeah, more than myself, my other two co-founders have actually been working in this space for over 10 years. And they're really close to e-commerce content. They work with a lot of the large brands, all online retailers, a lot of the photo studios as well in the US, in Europe, also in India. So they really come into the space with a very deep understanding of what kind of content works online. What does it take for content to work for sellers to drive their online purchases? So my background really is, as you mentioned, I have some background in tech, some in hospitality, and also in this space I was advising my co-founders before this. But really what I like to do is build products. And this sort of gives me, between the three of us, we have a lot of deep industry expertise, a lot of vertical expertise, and also with my tech background, product development expertise to bring a platform to the market.
It's super interesting because when I look at Dresma, it talks a lot. And in all transparency, I've never used the Dresma platform before, but basically if I look at what's on the tin, on the website, the detail of the modules that you offer, I could almost think of it as an AI-driven design studio for e-commerce brands and their content, whether that be specifically in relation to product content, being able to have a full photo studio for product content, being able to replace backgrounds, cut out backgrounds, etc., being able to generate listing content for products from scratch based on the image itself. And AI is basically, it's almost difficult to get even any funding today from VCs unless you've got AI in the name of your product. But 5.5 years ago, when you started out with this platform, AI certainly wasn't getting the amount of airtime that it's getting today. And so when you guys first started out, was AI always envisaged to be at the core of your platform, or was that added laterally as access to AI technology, large language models, machine vision, machine learning, etc., as it became more democratized and more normalized in the market? Was that something that you guys integrated into the platform laterally, or was that always the vision?
Okay. So machine learning was always the vision. We started out in the space with listing imagery. So we first built out a platform that took product images, whether they were shot in photo studios or on our mobile app, and gave you professional quality outcomes from that through a machine learning based post-production platform. So that was the start of it. So we've built on AI in the sense that we've been using machine learning and deep learning models for the last 5 years. This generative piece really has caught on over the last year and a half, 2 years. And we've built that or use that to build out on the creative imagery side. So we marry our high expertise when it comes to image processing on getting you the best outcomes of your product images with the creative edge that Gen AI gives you to create backgrounds, to add models to your imagery, and to be able to extract enough intelligence out of your product images to do very relevant product titles, product descriptions for online listings. So we make we do the whole end-to-end journey. You can pick up our mobile app, do the product photography right on the mobile app, and from there get to a full Amazon listing in a matter of minutes.
Wow. And look, we've had Ocular on the podcast before and a couple of other platforms similar to Ocular that basically take machine vision, machine learning, and they'll take all the images that you've already got in your catalog and they will create product descriptions. They will create structured data, product attributes and arrays and things like that to help the listing both capture more of the long tail within search engines, capture the long tail within marketplaces, but more importantly, make sure that when a customer is browsing your website, whether it's a D2C website, whether you're a retail aggregator, it doesn't really matter. When they're browsing your website, to be able to have a better search and find experience, because even internal search engines on websites, even categorization on websites is so heavily dependent on this textual content beyond the image, right? Beyond the video, behind the enriched content, we now have to have this greatly detailed textual content around a product to make the customer experience a good one. And going one step further, when we look at automated enterprise SEO platforms like Verbolia and similar and some other platforms, basically every other AI-driven platform for product discovery requires really good product content. None of those platforms, it's the age-old adage, garbage in, garbage out. And without great product content, it makes it very difficult for search, merch, personalization platforms, makes it difficult for any of these platforms to work the way that they were intended to work in the absence of great product content. And it feels like you have married multiple pieces of functionality together in one studio kind of hub type platform to where we can say, okay, we're gonna not only generate the listing information, we're not only going to create the unstructured and structured product data textually, but we're also going to help you with images that are engaging, that represent the product in a very accurate way, because there's a lot of product categories that are visually driven, right? That aesthetics matter, whether that be furniture, whether that be fashion, whether that be lip gloss, it almost doesn't matter. But there are so many product categories, homewares, etc., that are so aesthetically driven that without the marriage of great content and great imagery, you're going to really struggle to convert customers.
So what I'll add to that, Jason, is that you mentioned text descriptions being very important when it comes to search engine optimization. What's happening in the search space is it's actually becoming multimodal. So people are searching by images as well. So you better have your image content also reflect not just the product characteristics, but the use cases as well. And I'll give you a very simple example. So if you were selling a summer dress, right? You better have lifestyle images that depict that image in a garden party scene, if that's the use case, right? Because somebody who's searching today, especially the younger generation, younger than us, they are searching by use cases rather than product characteristics. So your use cases better be represented in the images, because that's how the search is happening, right? That it's very important to understand that search is becoming much more multimodal than it used to be. Text is important, but imagery is very important as well. And the variety of use cases that you can actually build into your product imagery, that's really what's going to drive how well your product is searched.
And look, I think even if I look at my own behavior, and look, I'm abnormal in the sense that I do the vast majority of my shopping online. I realize e-commerce is still only somewhere between 15 and 25% of total retail sales. So a significant amount of retail is still done in physical retail stores. For that 15 to 25% of online purchases, I know if I think about myself and I'm on Amazon or I'm on another marketplace or I'm on a D2C website, if there is no product image, I will automatically filter results, search results by products that actually have images. And I can't imagine that I'm alone in that. I simply will not buy a product if it does not have a product image, if it doesn't have a very good detailed product image, ideally more than one product image, ideally in situ, like you said, if it's in use. I was recently buying some wire hanger clips. They're just retained wires, and they have a double-sided sticky tape, and then they've got a wire clip on it. And I wanted to see, okay, what does this actually look like, right? And being able to see it in situ, actually in a use case, being used, retaining some wires, I only can make that buying decision based on seeing it used in the way that I wanted to use that exact same. And I bought them off of Amazon. And if this manufacturer and the manufacturer that I ultimately ended up buying off of, they were selling direct from China, shipping it direct to me in Mexico. And there were many other sellers on there that had similar products, but the vast majority of them had zero images whatsoever. I ultimately ended up buying off of the supplier that had product images. And I cannot imagine that I'm alone in my thinking that, hey, not only does it have to maybe look good and fit in stylistically with my house, but it actually has to do the job. And I have to see it doing the job.
And you mentioned 15 to 25% of of sales being online, but there's a much larger percentage of discovery happening online. So you better have product images that are throw up high on searches, because that's how people are discovering new products. They may go out and physically try on the dress or try on the shoes, but discoveries are all happening online. So it's really important that your online content is up to date, it's high quality, it drives conversion, because the motivation for, even if it's not bought online, the motivation for physical sales a lot of times start with the online journey.
And I think with tools like Google Lens and other online tools, people are, even if they're in a showroom, they're looking at a specific, I don't know, it could even be something as simple as a washing machine, right? You take a snapshot of it with your phone, then you go to Google Lens, you look at it through Google Lens, and then Google's going to show you all the surrounding retailers that have either that product or something similar to it, based on the product image. So even if I'm in a retail store, sometimes I'm going to be looking for alternative suppliers of that product, or alternative complementary products, or substitute products. So product imagery is becoming such a crucial part of the buying journey that it used to maybe be considered a nice to have maybe a decade ago, but now it's considered a must have. And it's interesting because even in the B2B world, which is the space I play in almost exclusively now, after many years in D2C and B2C, we're seeing that even for fitment of certain items in maybe an automotive context, etc., being able to see the product and seeing the fitment of that product is actually a crucial influencer of conversion.
The other thing I would mention is that more and more product discovery or search is happening online, right? And you are browsing online. And on the mobile, the image becomes even more important. Things like infographics or just your hero image containing enough information so that you understand the dimension, understand the use, just by the images is very important, because people are very reluctant to go beyond the first fold and read through text. So your images the more information your images can convey, the better off you are, because that's where the conversion is going to happen.
And increasingly, these product images aren't being taken in full-blown photo studios with perfect lighting, with perfect backgrounds, on a carousel so we can get 360-degree views of the product. They're increasingly being taken just by a mobile device, by our cell phones, and admittedly, cell phone cameras are very good nowadays, but increasingly, we're not in a professional photo studio. Increasingly, we have products that are maybe we've unboxed out of our warehouse, we've assembled it in the warehouse purely to grab a quick product photo of it, and so we're taking photos that originate maybe as not studio quality. And so therefore it looks like you bring together this idea of, okay, cool. We have a full desktop application that you can do all of your photo manipulation, photo editing, background imagery, etc., based on AI descriptions. but you also have basically a photo studio in your hand because
Yeah.
you have a complementary mobile app for grabbing those photos in the first place, right?
Yeah. So we work with the used two-wheeler marketplace in India. Actually, we work with two of them where essentially they've handed out our app to their dealer network, and whoever brings in the bike, they just clean it up and take the images on the on our mobile app. It goes through our image processing engine, generates creative backgrounds for it, and they're ready to go live with the product in a matter of hours. Similarly, we work with a physical chain of stores that Amazon owns in India, and they have a physical and online presence. And they have a mandate that anything new that comes onto their physical shelves has to be online within 24 hours. So whoever's unboxing the products, actually doing the product photography and generating the listings and going online, and it's a matter, typically I think their average lead time is down to about 12 hours now. So anything that is on the shelf, anything new on the shelf is online within 12 hours.
Wow. And do you see with most of your clients, do you see them integrating your technology in with, say, a PLM workflow, a product lifecycle management workflow, or do you see them integrating it in with a PIM and enrichment workflow? Or do you see them just basically uploading it directly to their e-commerce platform if they're running Shopify? Because many Shopify merchants don't have a PIM system. They're using Shopify as their PIM system effectively. How are you seeing most of the retailers that you work with and the brands that you work with integrating this in with their existing product enrichment workflows?
So it really depends on the size of the seller, of the customer, right? So if they are somebody who's single channel, selling only on Amazon, we have a direct API link into Amazon. You can push the images or content directly onto your seller panel. So that's a completely seamless workflow. Or we have integrations directly onto Shopify. If you have a Shopify storefront, you can push the imagery directly. We also give you the option of a download in a custom CSV format. So if your PIM has a custom format to ingest data, you can export all of the content that you generate on our platform in a custom CSV. So you can just directly upload onto your PIM.
Wow. And I'm guessing that then in that CSV export out of your platform has got URLs to the images where the PIM can basically pull in those images directly from your platform, almost like they would from an S3 bucket, but basically they ingest that directly into the PIM. Then it comes into the PIM and then it can be automatically linked to the right product within the PIM, and basically you're off to the races.
So basically the way we do that is when you're actually doing the product imagery or creating a project on our web app, you can name your projects with your SKU ID or your unique ID that you have. And you can pick that as the connecting data point.
The linkage mechanism.
Yeah. So basically, you don't even have to link products at that point. If your SKU IDs match, it will automatically link the products to the right content that you already have online.
Awesome. And it also looks like you've come up with, it's a modular platform that does multiple different things in the one sort of stack, right? You've got the ability to remove backgrounds, create a white background, change background color, image resizer, batch editing of a whole bunch of images in one hit, AI background generation. And I'm guessing that means that we can either dynamically generate the background based on what the image of the product is and trying to make something contextual around that. Or I'm guessing we can verbally describe the type of background that we want to create, and then the AI will generate that and layer the image over the top of that. Is that how that works?
So we also have on the web app, we haven't officially launched it yet, but in beta, it's already there. You can actually go in onto the web app and essentially link your brand onto our platform. So you can give a URL and we will pull all the brand information, your previous imagery, your logos, your colors, the tone of voice when you're writing text. So all of that gets pulled onto the platform, and it customizes all the prompting that we do in our generative system. So your titles and descriptions then are in the language that you use in your product titles and descriptions. Your background images that we will suggest for a product will be context specific to the product, but also to your brand. So if your brand is very natural or minimalist or modern, the backgrounds that get generated are customized to that form. So that's the customization at the brand level that we have done. And starting January, you will see that we have a content recommendation piece that's coming out as well. So we will suggest what kind of content you should be updating your marketplace accounts with or your social media accounts with. So that's something that is down the road in a couple of months' time.
Wow. And so you said you already integrate with platforms like Amazon and Shopify. Do you also integrate with some of the social channels as well, so you can automatically push out to those?
So that's something that we are going to build out as we introduce this content recommendation piece, because there is a whole tracking engine that is getting built. So when you actually come in and connect your brand, we will track your competitor brands and see what they are doing, what's working for them, what's not working for them, and suggest a content roadmap for your account as well. So doing all of that, we will be connecting into your social media accounts, and then you can push content out directly to them as well.
And how does the platform handle contextual differences between, say, an Amazon and my Shopify website? I love the fact that you're picking up the tone, you're picking up the style, you're picking up effectively the brand cues from what's already existing and what's already there. But obviously, we have different contexts, right? What works well on Amazon won't necessarily work well on a D2C website, and vice versa. Sometimes there is some overlap, but sometimes we need something that's really contextual. So I guess the question is, the platform channel aware, and will it make subtle differences or subtle changes or subtle recommendation differences between, say, your Amazon channel and your D2C channel?
So the platform allows you to set up sub brands. So you can actually set up sub brands for different channels and contextualize their basis that. So when you're generating content, you can select, okay, I want to generate for this particular sub brand, and that can then get contextualized for your social media, for example, or your marketplace or your storefront.
And I'm guessing behind the scenes, and I'm sure you'll correct me if I'm wrong here, I know that, for example, I use Write Blogger, and it's really good at effectively looking at my existing content. It'll look at like my existing YouTube videos, and it will create a brand voice for my personal brand. And it will say, look, based on these last 20 videos of yours, this is the style we've picked up for you. This is what we think is relevant to you. Sure, you can obviously edit this, but this creates almost like a base prompt when they then look at new content. So for example, if I upload a new URL of a new YouTube video of a new podcast episode, it will then take my existing tone that it's built out for me, and then it will generate, say, for example, a relevant blog article that mirrors or is the cliff notes of that YouTube video. And so I find that works pretty darn well. It gets me like 90% of the way there. I have to make some final tweaks. I have to make sure names are spelled right. I have to make sure brands are spelled right. I have to make sure that everything is perfect. But for me, for example, it's cut down my time of manually creating and repurposing my videos to blog posts from an hour, doing it 100% manually, to where now I can do it in 7 minutes on average from a new video, right? And that's because the prompt is pre-refined for my style, my tone, and my personal brand. And it feels like you're doing something similar. You're pre-generating a prompt that is very brand specific.
So we do a couple of things, right? So one is the platform is aware of your tone of voice and the way you like to present your product titles and descriptions. But we also track what kind of keywords are working on Amazon, what kind of search words are working on Amazon. And that's done real time every day. We update that data and we marry that and then suggest what titles and descriptions to use. So not only is it customized to your brand language, but it's also a keyword aware so that you are getting good search results out of that.
And are you also monitoring Google as well for the same type of thing, so that we're now effectively making SEO-optimized content for our website that's going to get picked up by Google and is contextually aware of in-demand keywords on Google as well?
So currently, we're essentially all the marketplace intelligence that we use for our listing generator is marketplace driven. So we are actually honed in very much into Amazon. If you're generating for Amazon, we are for the Shopify content. That's something that we are looking at as what kind of cues do we want to be able to bring into that system so that the search engines work for that. The only challenge with Shopify is people tend to use different kinds of searches on Shopify. So it's a little bit of an open market. It's a little bit more difficult to design for that. Amazon is a little bit easier in some sense because the search is what it is.
Yes, absolutely. And are you finding that some of your customers, especially with the explosion in growth of Walmart Plus and Target's Marketplace, and marketplaces have just gone berserk over the last couple of years, and there's now more channel proliferation than ever before. There's a lot of regional marketplaces that have a stronghold in a given region over and above what Amazon does in region. There's now B2B marketplaces. DC360 estimates that by the end of 2024, there's going to be over 1,000 global B2B specific marketplaces catering to specific verticals and categories of products. Are you seeing that you guys are having to integrate with more marketplaces, pull data down from more marketplaces than just Amazon now because of this proliferation of marketplace channels?
Yeah, so we're addressing that in two ways. Wherever we're seeing that there is a lot of demand from our seller base that they want content, so we do direct integrations in those cases. For example, we have a Walmart integration as well. Other than that, we also have a couple of partners that do multi-channel inventory management. Yeah, Commerce Hub is one of them. So it's basically our system is compatible with them. So you can actually upload content to a Commerce Hub and then distribute through that as well. So that's an option if you are multi-channel. You can actually, and using something like Commerce Hub, you can use that to push out content as well. What we are looking at right now, and something that probably towards the middle of next year, is designing a workflow that we already do adaptations, in the sense that if you have clicked images on our platform, you can come back at any point in time and export those images in whatever format you want. You can specify canvas sizes, margins, background colors, all of that you can change at any point in time and then export those images to that specification. So that allows us to essentially, if you have your Amazon account synced, you can always export any of your SKU images to any platform specifications that you want. So even if your existing imagery that you haven't done on our platform, you can readapt on our platform.
When a customer first comes to you, a merchant first comes to you, what are the typical challenges that are the most common things that you're hearing that they say, hey, we have problem X and we think you can solve it? What are the most common challenge? Is it scalability? Is it the ability to deal with all of these content requirements by channel with a small team of merchandisers, maybe 1, 2, 3 merchandisers in a small business, and really they just cannot deal with the flood of requests that they need to be able to get a product live? Because usually brands will have a minimum level of enrichment that they will require before they are willing to make a product live on a given channel. And so sometimes those stage gates are built into a PIM or other workflow. And so therefore, I'm dealing with, in some cases, B2B brands, for example, that are 12 months behind on board. Let's say they're a wholesale distributor. They might be 12 months behind adopting new brands into their catalog simply because they cannot get up and running with enough product content to make that product sellable. So what are some of the key challenges that your customers deal with, that when they come to you, they say, this is our pain point, can you help?
Yeah. So there, typically, again, I think it depends a little bit on the size of the seller. So a lot of the smaller sellers really are struggling just to get high quality content just for the few SKUs that they have. So their challenge really is to get high quality photography done, get high quality listing images, and the minimum set of creative imagery that makes them stand out on Amazon, whether it's an A+ or infographics. That's the biggest challenge, right? So we work with a lot of fashion houses that are doing footwear or accessories like bags, which have a lot of challenges just getting good quality imagery and listing in place. So there, our app workflow with our creative backgrounds really helps them out. They don't depend at that point on external studio photography or getting a photographer in-house, because they just don't have the SKU count to make it viable to do that. Right? So that's on the lower end. Once you get to some scale, the biggest challenge really is your channel presence, right? You may have a very good strategy for your own storefront, but your Amazon is lagging behind, or your Walmart is lagging behind. And this sort of catalog enrichment for other channels really becomes a big challenge. And that's something that we work on with large brands like Zenny or Fabletics, essentially helping them out with essentially their alternate channel presence. So basically, they have a lot of content on one channel, want to adapt it or change it or make it more relevant for another channel. Those kinds of opportunities are where we step in. And then obviously in the longer run, we become a regular cog in the wheel whenever they have new content, wherever they want to put it on.
And are you finding that in some instances, brands need to custom integrate you via API with, say, for example, an existing PIM workflow where they get to the enrichment stage, where they get to the image addition stage, or maybe they need to make a call out from the PIM to your APIs. Okay, here's some information, some base information about the product, generate XYZ for us, and then send it back via API. And we're gonna integrate, we're gonna custom integrate you into some of our enrichment and merchandising workflows in the business because, hey, look, we think we got a pretty good workflow here, but we think we can leverage your tooling at certain select points in that enrichment process to get us to a better place where we have some of that context-specific content.
So we have APIs available on both ends of our workflow. So you can create job orders, send media to our system through APIs, and you can collect job orders and media through APIs on the other end. And we have a fairly configurable workflow. We can design whether you want background removal, white background with such and such margins, or you want a creative background, this kind of prompting, this kind of brand language. All of that is configurable in the system.
So really, it is almost like a headless ready platform in the sense that we don't have to necessarily use your UI to get workflows done. No. We can actually integrate with them. We can trigger remotely via API. Here's the workflow. Here's the prompt. Here's what we require. Do the job, send it back to us, and we'll integrate it into our content engine or our CMS or wherever it needs to be.
Yeah. The only time that sort of that workflow kind of breaks down is if you need somebody to do image selection. So if you have a creative marketing team that is looking at the lifestyle imagery that you're adding to your fashion catalog as part of your Amazon, then that sort of image selection becomes a little bit easier to do on our platform rather than us sending 8 versions of an image or 12 versions of an image and you're doing selection on your end. So it can be done, but it's a little bit easier on our platform.
Yeah, I guess to your point, though, if I'm a merchandiser and I'm living in a PIM system, then maybe I do bring in the 8 images and then I select 3 of those to make active on a given channel. That way I don't have to have 2 different workspaces. I can work in a familiar interface and make my selections from there. So I guess it just depends, again, as you rightly pointed out, it really depends on the scale of the brand, because I might have, if I'm a large brand and I have a 50,000 SKU catalog or a 500,000 SKU catalog, I'm probably going to be living in my merchandising technology, not necessarily living in your platform.
Exactly.
And how are you finding that this improves, for example, internal site search using your modern search merch personalization technologies, your Nostos, your Algolias, et cetera? How are you finding for your brands that you work with that this improves their performance, and so therefore the conversion rate that they are able to drive because they have better content and because they can categorize products better, because we can now merchandise for specific queries within those technologies based on the data that they are able to index from you? Are you finding that kind of ups their game substantially too? And so it basically helps all merchandising technology perform better?
Yeah, it depends on where you're assessing this, right? So if you're doing it on Amazon, for example, so there the assessment is fairly easy to do because you just look at your presence on the searches that are relevant to you, right? So that's fairly easy to do. And what we are doing as part of the content recommendation piece that I talked about that's going out in January is we are doing that in real time. So you can monitor the system will monitor how your listings are performing. And if they've dragged down because of a competitor doing a better job or something like that, it will automatically suggest changes and update your content. So that's something that's coming up. It's a little bit more difficult to do on an open platform like Shopify, where depending on what kind of search engines you're running and how you're configuring them, some content may work better than others. So we can customize the content, both the image generation and the text piece, but that's not a closed loop system yet. So I can't say that I will monitor and make it better today, but that's something that one of the things that we have been considering is whether we build our own search that you can use on your own Shopify, and this actually works better with our content. So that's something that may be something towards the end of next year.
And how it's unlikely, I would imagine, that if somebody's put $100,000 investment into their Algolia implementation or their Nosto implementation or something like that, they've got it really optimized to that nth degree, it's unlikely that they're going to make the jump, even if you offered a search engine. Now, to the smaller brands that maybe aren't using an enterprise search merchant personalization platform, you might be a great alternative for them, especially when they're first starting out. But how important do you see being able to close that feedback loop on owned D2C or B2C websites with those search and merge platforms? Because they're generating a tremendous amount of data that I would imagine would be super useful for you guys to continue to be able to refine the content on a per SKU basis.
So that's something that essentially is a partnership discussion that we need to have at the right time with these guys. But I think personally feel that as searches become more multimodal, that this becomes less of an issue in some sense, because I mean, you can keyword stuff your text, you can't keyword stuff your images, right? So it's your image is what it is, as long as it's high clarity and you have enough angles and you have enough context in your imagery, it will float up, right? So that's something it's much more difficult to rig a visual search than it is on a text search.
Like a zoo view or something like that, so some kind of a visual, because there's a lot of visual search platforms out there now that are based on visual matching and visual context matching.
And you're seeing Android, at least is coming on, natively supports circle to search. So it's basically, that's a pure visual search.
And is there anything your customers are asking you for today? They're coming to you and say, hey, you don't do this, but we'd love you to do it, and we'd love to be able to do all these things in your platform. Is there anything, you've talked about a couple of things that are on your roadmap for early next year, but other than those things that we've discussed, is there anything your customers are asking for that you don't do yet that you do want to do at some point in the future, or any gaps in the marketplace over and above what you've already shared that you go, hey, we don't do this today, but we think in 12 months' time, this is going to be really important for us to be able to do in our platform?
Yeah, I'll answer that in two ways. The immediate things that on our platform are a little bit clunky in some sense right now. Higher order content like A+, where essentially we have an internal team that works on finishing content at least. The AI will get it to 70%, and then the last 30% is some person actually doing that. So automating all of that, as well as with model imagery, we feel that the last 10% today is human. There is a human intervention required. Both of these we should be resolving. The model one, we are rolling out a complete self-use workflow in early January. And A+, we should be rolling out a self-use journey sometime towards the end of February. So both of those would become completely self-use journeys. You can churn out hundreds a day if you wanted to of any kind of content that you like. So that's something that's coming up early next year. The other thing that's something that we really need to invest a little bit more time on the technology and understanding how we're going to deliver our product videos, because that's something that AI can really help with. But the difficulty in some sense is that it's fairly easy to do a text to video, but embedding a real product into that video is not that easy, because your product has to be replicated. We can't make a fake product. As I like to say, generative AI is the art of the plausible, but you can't put a plausible product out there. It has to be your product out there.
Yeah, no question about that. And how do you guys make your money? I see that you effectively have a credit-based plan tiers, your typical SaaS platform. Got this starter, silver, gold platform with different pricing tiers, $6.99 annually, $14.99 annually, $39.99 annually. That saves you 25% off your monthly fees. And then I guess if I go over and above the credits that are allocated to my annual account, then I can add on additional credits. But how does the credits apply? Meaning that if I generate an image, is that one credit? If I generate a description, is that another image? If I generate structured product attributes, is that another credit? Or how do the credits actually get consumed as part of my plan?
So essentially, all of the generative workflows are essentially charged on a fractional credit basis. So depending on whether you're doing background removal or AI generation, those are some part of a credit. That today is actually free on the platform. We will only start charging for them towards sometime in February. So actually, the generative part is currently free on the system. So anybody who wants to come and try out can do it for the next couple of months. Where we do charge today is when anybody from our team actually gets involved in the content piece. So that gets charged out. So if you're looking for professional level retouch of the images that we are generating, we can have we have a entire team of graphic designers and artists that are available that can actually help you with creating absolutely professional quality content on the platform itself. So that's something that especially the larger seller audience that we have really appreciates, because they don't have to go hunt for people on Fiverr or a marketing agency or anything like that. Everything is available on the platform. So that's the way the credits work. So it's starting February, we will be charging for the AI and the machine learning workflows as well. But those will be fractional credits. A credit will give you 50 background removals. A credit will give you 12 generations, AI generations. So those that's how the credits work. And then if you are engaging our team to do any work, then those are charged as well.
Makes complete sense. And when you think about the future of AI, is there anything you are particularly, because I'm guessing that you don't build your large language models from scratch. You're maybe consuming something from ChatGPT via API or something like that. What has you, I guess, the most excited right now, if we were to look out the next 6 months, say, with the evolution? We just read that Amazon has put another $4 billion into their AI investments, generative AI investments. There's the amount of money being spent on generative AI right now is, if we look across all the major players in the market. But what has you the most excited right now as it relates to your platform over, say, the next 6 months?
I think we have a fairly comprehensive content generating platform. So we really answer the question of how do I generate content, right? I want my dress with a certain kind of model, standing in a certain kind of context. Our platform does that pretty well, right? So that's where we are in some sense in our product roadmap. Where I am very excited about going is answering the question of what should we be creating. So answering that question for the brand is actually where we feel the real wow factor is, right? As a brand, I should be able to tell you that you want to put this particular product on Amazon. Here's the A+ that you want. Here's the infographic that would really work for you. Here are the lifestyle images that would really work for you. So that level of call it mood boarding, market intelligence analysis that being done for you through AI agents, that's what really exciting me.
So I think you just described a creative director. I think like an AI creative director.
An assistant for a creative director. Give them enough ideas for them to be able to then make informed decisions.
Love it. And any visions for ever getting into the B2B space? Because that's a whole different world than the traditional retail space with very visually focused products. Any interest or opportunity in the B2B space that you're seeing?
Yeah, so we do work with some B2B platforms, especially in the furniture space, because what happens with furniture is you have to aggregate furniture pieces together for you to create a real image, right? If you were designing coffee tables, if you want to really sell that well, or at least attract buyers for that, even if you're a wholesaler or a manufacturer, you really need to show that in context, right? And setting up those imagery is extremely expensive, right? You need to ship product, get it together into a studio, get all of that together. AI does wonders for that. So we have actually, in a B2B context, furniture is one that we do have some customers with. They're using the platform. We have appliances, small appliances, cookware, those kinds of customers that typically would find it hard to get good photography done, especially if they have large SKU counts or large variations. So that's something that AI really helps you with, is actually creating those catalogs that even for a B2B use case is important.
And any vision for short video generation? Any vision for taking static imagery and generating video content from that? Is that on your radar at all?
So what we do is, I understand it's a little bit of a hack, but for short videos, we will create a contextual video and show product images side by side or integrated in some form. AI generated embedded products are a little bit of a challenge right now. I think it'll take the technology maybe another 6 months to a year before we can really do that in a consistent way.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We see some artifacts in some of these AI generated videos that are a little bit strange sometimes. People with six fingers and on a hand, and
It's a little bit more challenging than that for actual product. So because the model's been trained on thousands and thousands of hours of video content, so it knows how to model a person and how the person moves, but they have no prior knowledge of your product. And whatever prior knowledge of your product is, whatever image you're giving them, that's the only information that they have. So the kind of
yes,
guesses they're going to make in terms of what it looks like in motion or in different angles, that's a tough problem to solve.
it certainly is. But the technology is getting better every day. I've seen some of those AI generated videos with the latest ones. I think that have been the most incredible are Trump with Biden on a day's outing together, eating ice cream, riding horses together. It's pretty incredible. So definitely where the future of AI generated video is going is it's pretty crazy actually what you can prompt and what you can generate today. So I imagine that within the next 12 months it's gonna get even better. Listen, this has been a fantastic conversation. I've learned a ton. An hour has absolutely flown by. Now, as we come down to the end of our time together, this is where I get to flip the script. I get to hand the microphone over to you, let you ask me one question. Any question you like, can be personal or professional. So, SIDDHARTH Sinha from Dresma, what is your question for me today?
You tell me what excites you about the content in the online space.
Look, I think this is going to sound really boring, but there are so many brands out there that do images and do descriptions so badly. If we could get every brand to a minimum standard where we've got a long description for every single product, we've got at least 3 to 5 structured product attributes that I can filter, because today when I get to a category and there's 1,000 products in that category, if I can't effectively filter with 2 or 3 really important attributes that matter to me, that experience is pretty crap, because I've got to scroll through 100 images before I find something that maybe is relevant to me, and I've got to use my human brain power to do the filtering instead of being able to do really good filtering. I think when alternative products, product recommendations, I think if every brand could get to a minimum standard on that, the whole web experience of online shopping would get exponentially better, and there would be significantly higher trust in the market. There would be significantly lower product return rates, which is going to make the whole industry more sustainable. It's going to bring shipping costs down. I think that tools like yours give me hope that these brands that do almost nothing when it comes to product content today because they just think it's too overwhelming, it's too impossible, we can't do this, we run on a shoestring budget, we got a small team, whatever it is. I think that generative AI gives me some hope that most of these brands, given another 12 to 24 months, we are going to be removing every excuse that these brands could possibly give to having a minimum standard of content on the internet. And I think that's a really positive evolution for our industry, because this is something that has been put in the too hard basket for so long that now democratizing access to this kind of tooling and bringing, I remember even for my own content, for example, I have recently started to use HeyGen to translate all of my podcast videos into Spanish. And it does voice, lip, and face sync. And it looks literally like me and my guests are speaking 100% native Spanish. Now, when I looked at this a year ago, or just over a year ago, it was going to cost me about $20,000 a year to be able to translate all of my content for a year into Spanish. Now, recently, just a few months ago, they came out with an all-you-can-eat for $69 a month plan, right? And I was one of their first signups when they released that all-you-can-eat plan for $69 a month. And so now, for less than $800, $900 a year, I can translate all of my videos into Spanish, and I've established Spanish language channels for my podcast on all platforms. That is what excites me. It's the fact that the cost of this stuff is coming down exponentially, and what was only accessible but to the very, very largest brands in the market is now accessible to a one-man band podcast like me now. And that is probably the most exciting thing, is the democratization of really high quality content.
So I completely agree with you. We like to call this the content hurdle. This is the content hurdle to being online, and that's what we're really trying to remove. And you can think about this as the global marketplaces are amazing, because you can be a seller sitting out of Kenya or India or Mexico and selling into the US or into France or Italy. In order for you to be able to do that, you have to have content that is relevant, and you are competing against everybody, right? On an online marketplace, you're competing. If you're making handbags, you can be competing against the best. And you need to have content that works. You need to have content that convinces, and that cost has really come down dramatically over the last few years. And with generative AI, it's not language dependent, it's not cultural dependent. You can actually create content in any language that appeals to any culture. So that's something that we're really excited about, and we're working with a lot of small sellers to be able to do that as well.
I love it. I love it. Listen, how do you like people to get a hold of you? I will drop a link to your website and to your LinkedIn profile in the show notes. But other than that, how do you like people to reach out and have a conversation about Gen AI, your technology, your platform, e-commerce, etc.?
Email is great. It's just SIDDHARTH@Dresma.com. And
great. That's super easy. Listen, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It's been a fascinating conversation and a learning journey for me, and I can't wait to speak to you again soon.
Yeah, it's great speaking to you as well, Jason.
Are you a B2B or D2C e-commerce merchant? Then head over to greenwoodconsulting.net to learn how we can help you scale your business.